Welcome to the 700 Club, and thanks for joining us. Well, our first story is all about modern warfare and how it's changing. Military drones have become the preferred weapon in America's war on terror, and Iran and its proxies are also using drones to strike commercial and military targets in the Middle East.
And now China is reportedly ready to produce and sell hundreds of thousands of these game-changing weapons to the highest bidder. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
After 9/11, the U.S. military made the drone, or unmanned aerial vehicle, a major part of the international war on terror. Fast forward less than 2 decades, and its use is spreading. In September 2019, a swarm of Iranian drones attacked Saudi Arabia's largest oil refining facility with devastating results. Last year, in the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Azerbaijan's use of drones tipped the balance of power and helped them win the war. This is all part of the new face of modern warfare. Military drones are now a multi-billion-dollar industry. In 2021, the Pentagon budgeted more than $7 billion to drones, and by 2027, the global market is expected to explode to more than $55 billion. Seth Frantzman, author of Drone Wars, says this technology, wedded with artificial intelligence, represents a revolution.
I think they're a weapon of tomorrow. I mean, you have to think about drones transforming warfare the way tanks did in the Second World War, or the way, let's say, airplanes did, or even ironclad ships. We have to think of them as a total game changer in terms of how countries and even terror groups or drug warlords are able to wage war.
It's estimated that as many as 30,000 military drones are in service, and they come in all sizes.
Drones can be anywhere from the size of your thumb to the size of a big airplane, like a 747 or something, if you want to build them that large. And I think what we're seeing these days, especially with Iran in terms of its threats, is they claim 1,000 or 2,000 kilometer ranges of drones. And those are drones that usually are what's called a kamikaze drone, which means the drone goes one way. It doesn't come back. It just runs into the target.
That's what Iran recently used in an attack against a ship run by an Israeli company off the coast of Oman. While the U.S. and Israel were among those first out of this gate, the race is now on to see who will become the world's drone superpower.
I think if the United States or Western countries don't work very hard to catch up, I think that China will be the next superpower, because China has the industrial capacity and the willingness to innovate and use new systems to, I think, roll, hundreds or thousands of these things off the line. And I think they also are selling them all over the world. So I think we'll see a lot more Chinese drones, just like we see a lot of Chinese everything.
The stunning Saudi attack 2 years ago showed how lethal drones can be.
It shows us exactly what can be done with drones, even against an advanced power like Saudi Arabia that ostensibly has Western air defenses. And the drones were able to come in quite low and I think avoid radars, and were able to carry out pinpoint attacks.
As Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz revealed recently, an Iranian base with hundreds of drones represents one of the latest threats to Israel and the Middle East.
What it tells us is Iran's not just exporting the drones and the blueprints. It's bringing people into Iran, training them, and then sending them back. And I think that's a big implication for the region, because it means you have very skilled operators who can use drones to target ships or energy facilities or whatever they want.
Frantzman says now nations are racing to develop the lasers, microwave weapons, and technology in order to defend against this drone revolution. And victory in the next major conflict could well depend on who wins the drone wars. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, the face of warfare is changing, and the face of terror is changing. And what was a weapon against terrorism is now going to be the preferred weapon of terrorists. We need to pay attention to what Iran is doing, because on the fuselage of those drones that they're building in Iran and they're exporting, they actually have the word Gaza on them. So they're quite intentional, saying we want to get drone technology into the hands of Hamas and Gaza and use that against Israel. With the range that these things have, you could easily see it being used against other targets throughout the Middle East and even into Europe. So this is an absolute game changer in what are the defenses against this kind of technology. Well, in other news, Democrats and Republicans actually agree on something. They agreed that the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan was a disaster. Tuesday, members of a Senate committee grilled Secretary of State Antony Blinken over the blunder. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Senators on the Foreign Relations Committee wanted answers from Blinken on why the administration didn't foresee the collapse of the Afghan government and what's being done to get those Americans still in Afghanistan out. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson has more.
While both Republicans and Democrats seem to agree the withdrawal from Afghanistan was a disaster, each side has a different idea of who is to blame.
The rushed and embarrassing retreat is a stain on America's credibility that will have implications for years to come.
Democrats claimed the result was years in the making due to a backlog in the special immigrant visa process and no clear plan to leave the country.
Let's stop with the hypocrisy about who's to blame. There are a lot of people to blame, and we all share in it.
Senator Ted Cruz disagreed.
The Biden administration caused this disaster. You own this.
Cruz also criticized the Biden administration for abandoning Bagram Air Force Base, our Afghan allies, and billions of dollars in military equipment.
When you're looking at the Taliban potentially having 64,000 machine guns, 33 Black Hawk helicopters, 16,000 night vision goggles, we will see American blood spilled because of these colossal mistakes.
Secretary Blinken argued President Biden was faced with a choice to end the war this year or escalate it.
By January of 2021, the Taliban was in its strongest military position since 9/11, and we had the smallest number of U.S. forces in Afghanistan since 2001. There's no evidence that staying longer would have made the Afghan security forces or the Afghan government any more resilient or self-sustaining. If 20 years, hundreds of billions of dollars in support, equipment, training did not suffice, why would another year, another 5, another 10?
Blinken claims the emergency withdrawal was sparked by the shockingly fast collapse of the Afghan government.
Even the most pessimistic assessments did not predict that the government forces in Kabul would collapse while U.S. forces remained.
Unexcused Senator Marco Rubio wasn't buying.
This wasn't a failure of intelligence. This was a failure of policy and planning. We have the wrong people analyzing this. Someone didn't see this. Either someone didn't see this or someone didn't want to see this because we had established this, we wanted to be out by September 11th.
A few senators stressed the need to stop looking back and start coming up with solutions. That would include how to get the remaining U.S. citizens who want to leave out of Afghanistan and how to support the Afghan women facing an uncertain future in the country. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Abby. California Governor Gavin Newsom solidly defeated a recall effort in the overwhelmingly Democratic state. His main Republican challenger, Larry Elder, conceded early this morning while Newsom thanked voters for his victory.
Thank you to 40 million Americans, 40 million Californians, and thank you for rejecting this recall.
Let's be gracious in defeat. We may have lost the battle, but we are going to win the war.
Newsom is up for re-election next year and still faces heavy criticism for rising crime and a homeless crisis in the state. Elder speculated to run again, telling his supporters, quote, to stay tuned. Well, turning now to the south, where Texans are cleaning up after Hurricane Nicholas, many giving thanks that the storm wasn't worse. Meanwhile, people in Louisiana are bracing for days of rain and potential flooding as the remnants of Nicholas slowly move across the state. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Cleanup has begun after Nicholas roared ashore. The storm knocked out power to more than 500,000 homes and businesses and dumped more than a foot of rain, leaving behind a path of destruction. Nicholas roared ashore near Galveston, Texas, as a Category 1 hurricane. Powerful storm surge turned Houston's streets into rivers, and winds up to 95 miles per hour toppled trees and tore homes apart.
And it was just howling like the craziest howl I never heard in my entire life. It was like a tornado that lasted for 7 hours.
Right now, what we're doing is a damage assessments throughout the city, identifying what areas are going to need, what areas have been damaged.
Destruction reported even before the storm touched down.
Fences down, trees down, roofs off. It's coming. It's built up big.
But Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner is thankful for no reported injuries or fatalities, and the heavy rains did not cause massive flooding.
We were prepared, but quite frankly, we were blessed last night. I'm not going to say lucky. You know, good Lord just smiled on the city of Houston.
As residents pick up the pieces, they're also counting their blessings. The roof of this man's business was torn off.
We've been here already 4 years, and God is good. That's why we name it blessing. A lot of people think that we're from a town named Blessing, but no, blessing just comes from God.
A tree barely missing this woman's house.
We had actually just got done praying, so I'm glad it went the other way instead of on top of the house.
While Texas largely dodged a bullet as the storm weakened, in Louisiana, widespread rainfall still poses a threat as the storm crawls to the east.
Slow-moving systems in the tropics can do this, produce lots of rain, and we're afraid of excessive rainfall today. Central and southern parishes of Louisiana, all the way toward the Florida Panhandle by the time we get into tonight.
Many of these areas still cleaning up from Hurricane Ida 2 weeks ago. Nearly 100,000 customers in southeast Louisiana are still without power, and the streets are full of debris, which could make the flooding worse.
There's still more garbage to come to the street and still a lot more damage to be taken care of.
Meanwhile, President Biden has issued an emergency declaration for Louisiana, along with the one that already exists for Ida. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thank you, Charlene. Gordon, such a need for help and relief after so much devastation.
And Operation Blessing is there. It's there in your name, on the ground in Louisiana, deploying into Texas. We want to be there for people and help them in their moment of need. And whether that's with much needed supplies, like cleaning supplies, clean out supplies, also tarps for roofs, food and water. We want to help people in their time of need. If you want to be a part of it, all you have to do is give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can write us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. All you have to do is put Operation Blessing Disaster Relief on the memo line of a check, or you can call us and say, here's my gift, 1-800-700-7000. You can also visit cbn.com. There's a place on the giving page where you can designate your gift to Operation Blessing Disaster Relief. Be a part of it. Be a part of helping people in need.